In the early 20th century, two women living thousands of miles apart both used their art to share a message of gender equality and feminism. The stories behind their paintings are as spectacular as the art itself. Romaine Brooks and Frida Kahlo fought to break barriers and create a path for those who would come after them. To begin, during the time of Romaine Brooks, France was seeing a resurgence in the symbolist art movement. This was a movement focusing on portraying ideas through symbols and the meaning behind lines, colors, and forms. It gave means to express the abstract and tell deeply personal feelings such as sexuality or freedom. These themes were immensely appealing to people in oppressed subcultures such as Romaine Brooks. She began to be known for her iconic dark color palette and openness about her sexuality. The lesbian artist bared her soul in her symbolist paintings based off topics she cared deeply about. She often painted her friends, mixing both their stories and her own to the final pieces. Many of her works represent gender equality, which was a serious problem that affected her and her community. In Romaine Brooks' La Baronne Emile the objects and her experiences represent the importance of her control over her body. This piece was heavily inspired by her divorce, helping to give it such a strong theme. First, Brooks' marriage to John Ellingham Brooks inspired her to get control over her life. She was married for less than a year and had been groomed for this marriage by her mentally unstable mother since she was very young. She knew she wanted a more independent life. Soon after she was married, she left her husband to go to London and divorced him from there. The control she found gave her the inspiration for this painting. Also, the painting showed a mood of control, portrayed through the design. Brooks has the woman painted larger than anything else, obscuring a fourth of the painting. She is in charge and independent, like Brooks has finally become. The events of her life made these ideas very important to her, and she showed this through her art. Finally, Brooks' love of control over her body shows its important role in gender equality. In Paris, there was a growing subculture of LGBTQ+ women defying the upper class with their sexuality and masculine style. Around this time, a more androgynous fashion had even come in style, while France felt the effects of the global women's suffrage movement. As women fought for more rights, more were taking control of their bodies and owning their sexuality. Brooks used the different objects of this painting to expand on this idea that she was so passionate about. One of the most prominent objects is the ocelot. First, the ocelot's mannerisms are meant to show its power. The cat seems to be flicking their tail, very satisfied. They're looking straight at the camera with a fierce calmness, right in front of the cage that used to hold them. They project an air of confidence. Their mannerisms are meant to show their power in a new situation. Second, Brooks chose to use interesting form in the painting to make the ocelot show her desire. The darkness surrounding the cat shows the shameful nature of her passion that she largely tried to ignore before letting it out. Brown is traditionally the color of honesty. This shows that she is now being honest with herself about her desires through the color of the animal. She has decided to embrace this, but is still nervous about repercussions. Finally, in the painting, Brooks drew the ocelot symbolizing passion. She has the cat uncaged to represent that the woman has finally let her true feelings out. It has black and white spots all over its coat, to show that it's not all bad or good, but simply natural. The idea of this woman's passion being let out of the background to take charge in her life is a very classic example of Brooks' work, but it's not the only example in this piece. Another object to discuss is the cage and the symbolism behind it. First, the cage is painted to portray its lack of power. It is shown behind the other objects and is dark gray with the door being held open. The shades of black make the cage seem to blend in. The darkness and shadows on and surrounding it show the fear of societal judgment. The light hand of the woman holding it open depicts her strength defeating that fear. Furthermore, Brooks chose to use aspects of design in the cage to show its unimportance. She used the technique of balance by painting the cage smaller and making the other objects appear bigger. Positioned in the corner of the painting, she also used emphasis on the other objects to lure the eye away from it. She tries to show that the cage now has no power over anything else in the painting. Last, Brooks made the cage to symbolize society. The oppressive nature of society's expectations caused her to keep her passions locked deep inside. She is now opening the cage and releasing herself from all these rules and allowing her true feelings to be free. Brooks shows this woman defeating society's expectations and allowing herself to behave and love as she wants. This message is very dear to Brooks, and she goes on to show it with the painting's last object. The most important object in Brooks' piece is the woman, who is the subject of the portrait. To start, the woman's outfit shows her dominance. She is wearing a large black overcoat with the animal print dress underneath and a very low neckline, showing most of her chest. The leopard print of her chest symbolizes her power, mimicking the ocelot next to her. Her fierce femininity is shown throughout her portrayal in the art. Second, Brooks uses interesting aspects of form to represent the woman's struggle. She is portrayed with light auburn hair and matching lipstick and blush. The orange represents the determination, showing her initiative on her face as she stares out at the viewer. It contrasts with the light gray of her skin, representing her practicality and conservative upbringing. The colors show her internal struggle with coming into her own. Finally, Brooks painted the woman to represent control. She has her hand on the cage, showing her control over the ocelot, the second most prominent object. This shows her control over her emotions and society's expectations. Her large black cloak represents the secrecy in her past, but the section of her dress shows her just beginning to show her true colors. Years after the prime of Romaine Brooks, another strong LGBTQ+ woman got her chance at the spotlight. Her genre of choice was surrealism. In surrealism, there was a beautiful new focus on personal imagination and expression by the painters of this time. It had become to be known for its iconic imagery of outlandish figures that are unique to each artist bearing their soul. Its focus on unique aspects of different people gave many of its most iconic pieces a theme of independence. Some artists took this a step further by expanding into gender equality. This theme is just as vital now as it was then. When surrealism was at its peak during the 1920s, it was often very misogynistic, with few female voices. Even as women began to fight for more rights, cultural norms still confined them to the home. Women always had to fight for their independence if they wanted to enjoy it. In the painting, Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair, Frida Kahlo paints many deeply symbolic objects. These, along with her life experience, come together to create a theme of independence. Kahlo's life did a great part in this painting's inspiration. To begin, she was moved by her divorce from her husband. She married famed muralist Diego Rivera, and their relationship was tumultuous from the start. Although she was bisexual and their relationship was open, he would become very jealous when Frida was with other men. Once he went so far as to be with her younger sister. She soon retaliated by being with his idol, Leon Trotsky. No one could argue that their divorce was almost inevitable. Also, the painting's mood of independence is shown through the design. Kahlo chose to depict herself far larger than anything else around her. She is alone in the frame, drawing the eye to her as the most important part of the piece. Her decision to paint herself alone is very unique to her work, as she is most often accompanied by other animals, people, or objects. Drawing herself alone and large shows her independence and strength. Finally, Kahlo's portrayal of herself shows its vitality to gender equality. The 1930s had been a monumental year for women's rights in Mexico, with them getting the right to vote in 1939. The feminist movement of the time had many laws passed, including ones benefiting women in the workforce. Kahlo was a proud part of this movement and vocal about her views on feminism. Overall, her amazing art piece showed both the importance of independence and her love of it. Much like books, Kahlo used objects in her painting to expand on her theme. First, the scattered piles of hair are important to the painting's composition. There are many small clumps of hair surrounding Kahlo, including one in her hand. One particular strand is still in the braid, reminiscent of her iconic braided hairstyles. This begins to show that her hair is her past, as she ignores it, looking towards the future. Next, her use of design shows the lack of attention paid to the hair. Although the image is replicated throughout the painting, the color and placement make it nearly blend into the floor in some places. Kahlo has depicted herself sitting above it on a chair, not looking down at the domain it blankets. This shows that she's moving on to a brighter time than the darkness of her past. Finally, the piles of hair symbolize Kahlo's liberation from her past. The black piles show the darkness of these times that were filled with heartbreak and betrayal. As they appear to be trying to reach her, none of them seem to draw her attention as she looks directly towards the viewer. They show her past cannot control her, and she can now choose her own future. This part of the painting begins to form the well-crafted theme. The next object continues. Another interesting part of this painting is the words and music notes on top. First, the words begin to show Kahlo's true emotions. The writing and musical notes on top of the picture are part of a Mexican folk song. Translated, they mean, "Look, if I loved you, it was because of your hair. Now that you are without hair, I don't love you anymore." Kahlo wanted to directly portray her feelings through a different medium. The unique aspects of her art show her complex headspace after the messy divorce. Next, Kahlo used an interesting form to show the value in the painting. The background is painted in warm tones used to convey strong emotions, but the colors are also mixed with pale grays. This shows that her conflicted feelings over her divorce are cut by the peace she has now found. The writing in black gives contrast to these colors, with clarity breaking past the muddle of emotions. Finally, in the painting, the words at the top represent her self-awareness. They show her understanding the struggles of her relationship and seeing them for what they were. Looking back, she could see the security she had with Rivera is not nearly as good as her new independence. Though this was a very important object in the painting, it is not the only one of importance to her journey. Similar to Brooks, the most important object in Kahlo's painting is the subject of her portrait. First, Kahlo portrays herself to show her own importance. She is shown in the middle of the painting and is looking directly at the viewer, as if daring them to mention her new style. She is holding a pair of scissors in one hand and a lock of cut hair in the other. She makes it clear that she had cut her hair moments ago, but appears strong and confident in the decision. Kahlo consciously made all these decisions to show their own importance. She is the first thing your eye is drawn to among the features of the painting. Furthermore, Kahlo used form to show her sadness. She chose to paint herself by using a darker, more muted color palette. She depicts herself in a navy blue suit with a burgundy button-up. The red shirt represents the passion she shared with her partner, now covered by a deep blue jacket showing stability. The darkness of the colors shows the remnants of the sadness she had felt. Finally, in the painting, Kahlo drew herself symbolizing change. She has a pair of scissors in her hand, betraying her cutting out a part of her life. Her expression is solemn, showing that she understands the necessity of the change, although she may still miss the happy times of the past. Her oversized outfit shows how she now feels small on her own, but there's a ray of sunlight across her face, conveying her optimism about this new phase of her life. Sadly, both paintings had things that went unmentioned. The chair that Kahlo portrayed herself sitting on could have had a paragraph all to itself. The unique form used in the color and style of the chair give a picture of happiness as it raises her above the ground, but in the end, I'd say the outcome of her happiness was adequately shown through the other items. Along with this, the table Brooks painted the ocelot sitting on could have been included, with an explanation of how it lifted the cat to bring it above the cage and the symbolism involved. This was the least prominent object in the painting, leading the viewer to believe the other objects could show the story behind the art. Finally, both these women left a mark on the world with their amazing and meaningful art. Brooks was not a well-known artist in her time, but her art was still relevant and important. She was one of the few LGBTQ+ artists, and her portraits show exquisite technique and creativity. She came at the tail end of the symbolist movement and helped propel modernism into another era. Along with this, Kahlo has become iconic since her death, symbolizing feminism and liberal ideologies. Frida Kahlo has become such a household name, she's even had a term coined for her widespread celebrity, Frida Mania. In conclusion, the art and message of these groundbreaking female artists will be remembered as an inspiration for years to come. Thank you so much for listening.